Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. The Yukon government says silence from Victoria Gold is making responding to the mine failure even more of a challenge. About 3 weeks ago, a 4 million ton rock slide ripped off part of the facility where gold is chemically extracted from ore, and no one from the company has spoken publicly since. As CBC reported this week, some experts have said this is a disaster playing out in real time. They say there's no pumping capacity at the facility, no storage, and no way to treat the volume of sodium cyanide solution, a plume of which, they warn, is inching towards a nearby free-flowing creek. Lauren Haney is the Yukon's Deputy Minister of the Department of Mines. She says the government acknowledges the gravity of the situation.
First, we agree the urgency is there. I will also say it is very unfortunate and frankly unhelpful that the company has been so silent in general and specifically around the actions that they are taking at site. Through the information we've received and especially the technical workshop conversations we've had this week directly with their technical experts, we've learned a lot more about what they are doing at site. So there is action being undertaken to protect the environment.
Haney says Victoria Gold is diverting, collecting, and working to treat affected water, though she says that's not necessarily enough. The Yukon government has provided the company with marching orders. Those include submitting plans to capture and collect contaminated groundwater and building 2 additional water storage facilities. A heat wave across parts of the Northwest Territories appears to be hitting a climax today. Environment Canada has warned more than a dozen communities about the sweltering conditions. For some, there's relief in the coming days, but for others, there isn't. The CBC's Leanie Lambrink has more.
37 degrees. That's the high in Fort Smith today.
It is so hot. It's like sitting in a sauna.
Connie Benwell helped set up a cooling center at the band office.
So the elders can come and just sit around and visit, snack, have coffee, drinks, and keep cool from this temperature because some people don't have anything to cool down with at home. So we have rides to pick them up and they can come and just spend the afternoon there at the band office.
People across the southern NWT will be looking for similar relief today, a wise move, according to this meteorologist.
Typically, it's really, people struggling with that temperature and struggling where they can't get any respite from it, if you want to put it that way. So oftentimes, a lot of people in the northern communities don't have air conditioning, don't have that ability to seek shelter and those kind of things, or are out working on the land and are very much out and about doing things. So we think about our firefighters.
Fort Smith is no stranger to heat and no stranger to stretches of multiple days where the daytime highs hit 29 degrees or more. It's happened 17 times since 1915. Yellowknife, meanwhile, has had just 3 of those stretches. There is a bit of relief coming for some communities. Fort Resolution and Hay River will see daytime highs drop to the high 20s after today. But in Fort Smith, people there are in for the long haul. Environment Canada is forecasting temperatures there to stay above 30 degrees until at least midweek next week. Leanie Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
In addition to heat warnings, there are also air quality advisories in the NWT right now. Wildfire smoke is blowing in and it's sticking around. Those advisories are in place for several communities across the North and South Slave and in the Dutcho. That smoke actually is so thick, it's also prompting travel advisories. The NWT government says drivers should expect delays and be extra careful on Highway 6 from the Alberta boundary to Enterprise and Highway 1, specifically between kilometers 0 to 84 and 260 to 294. We also have a quick update on the 2 fires burning near Fort Resolution right now. NWT Fire says they've grown considerably over the past couple of days. Today, the GNWT announced that it is closing the Little Buffalo River Crossing Territorial Park near Fort Resolution. The heat wave is certainly not helping the fire situation across Alberta as well. There are currently 133 active wildfires burning. 53 of those are out of control. In northern Alberta, heavy smoke is hanging over the Fort McMurray region, prompting an air quality advisory there as well. The extreme danger is also prompting an evacuation alert for a community. The CBC's Dennis Coveton has the latest.
A wildfire just over 440 hectares in size is burning about 15 kilometers northwest of the community of Janvier. The fire is in close proximity to Highway 881, and that prompted the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo and the Chippewa Prairie First Nation to issue evacuation alerts, as the highway is the only way in and out of the community.
One of the triggers would be if that fire crosses Highway 881 and potentially impinges the ability for the community to evacuate. That would be when we would escalate to an order.
Highway 881 was closed for a time from kilometer 213 to kilometer 241 north of Janvier due to the wildfire's proximity and smoky conditions, but it reopened the same day. Hot and dry weather plus plenty of fuel for the fire to burn through make its suppression a challenging task.
We do have 3 crews that are on the ground, along with helicopters and air tankers working on a fire guard on the east side of the wildfire to ensure that it doesn't hit the highway. It is a lot of grassy areas, and the dry, dead grass is causing the fire to move. We have seen significant growth on it. It's doubled in size since yesterday.
While no evacuation order has been issued, Janvier residents know the situation could escalate quickly. Dennis Coveton, CBC News, Fort McMurray.
In Iqaluit, an elder and former Nunavut MLA was injured while riding in an accessible van provided by a boarding home. Now, him and his wife say they want answers. Paulusi Kiyuktak was on a medical trip to Iqaluit for a doctor's appointment. He and his wife got picked up by the Sailiyarvik boarding home to go to the hospital. Kiyuktak was in a wheelchair, but he says the driver didn't secure or strap him down. He says he tried to tell the driver, but he just drove off. Kiyuktak says his wheelchair then tipped over in the van.
All my back and feet were bruised. I sent pictures to where I was asked to, and to this day, I have not been responded to.
He says it took his wife a few minutes to get him back up, but the driver kept driving without strapping him down. His wife had to hold the chair the rest of the way as it almost tipped over several more times. Kiyuktak says he thought he could have died. The CBC reached out to the Nunavut Health Department and the Sailiyarvik boarding home. They declined an interview due to patient confidentiality, but they say they are addressing the matter. Some people dealing with homelessness in Yellowknife now have a place to stay. A group of volunteers has been building tent platforms near the legislature. They started the project in late May, and after some changes, 2 families have now moved in. Sarah Kromolowski has that story.
If you've driven on Yellowknife's 48th Street recently, you might have noticed a big tent platform is no longer there. The group of volunteers that built it recently took it down. It's been replaced with some smaller platforms further from the road. 2 have already been built, and some residents have moved in, like Benjamin Manuel, who's been homeless since 2019. He's been mostly camping around Yellowknife since then, and he said he really likes this location.
And it's comfortable, nobody bothers you, there's no drinking, no drugging going on around here. And it's close to the road too, in case of emergency.
The volunteers who built the platforms tell CBC they changed the size and location of the platform for a couple of reasons. The original platform was really big, almost 25 meters squared, because the group wanted to build a canvas wall tent. But Manuel and other users wanted pop-up tents, and they said smaller platforms might be better. Volunteer Dinkaman Van Boshov tells CBC he's also hoping that the smaller platforms in more secluded location will make the project an easier sell for Yellowknifers and the territorial government. The platforms were built on commissioners' land without permits. Van Boshov says that they're working to get that permission now, and their next step will be reaching out to Indigenous governments for support. Sarah Kromolowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
People in Iqaluit are frustrated at the lack of communication over recent taxi fare hikes. Prices have gone up across the board. The city released public statements on some changes, but not all. Samuel Watt explains.
Even on a gloomy day, Jaco Apely will take a cab to get to his RV near the Causeway docks. In summer, he does that almost daily, so you can imagine the shock when he found out the price to get there, or to the road to nowhere, is now up to $15 per trip.
So when I kind of freaked out, and I called their dispatch and I said, you guys got to let people know ahead of time, not just right at the very last minute here when you're riding in a taxi.
That increase was passed by council on June 25th, but there's no statement on that particular change.
If they had announced it ahead of time, I wouldn't have bothered me so much.
There was a post from the city about other price changes, posted 10 days after it was approved. That includes for rides on other city roads.
When I first got here, it was like $8, I believe. And I knew it just got hiked to $9, and now I'm learning today it got hiked again, so that's a tough break.
The post did mention changes to elder fares too. First, you must now be 65, not 60 years old, to qualify, and it'll now cost you $7.50 after another increase earlier this year. All those price changes were stated as effective May the 1st.
I'm 61 now, supposed to be $5 forward. Now paying for $9.75. That's too much for me.
No, I didn't know that until another day last week when they told me that Elder's taxi price went up again.
Caribou Cab says it does hear complaints, but says it's up to the city to decide the taxi fares, and nobody from the city was available for an interview. Yearly price increases until 2028 for most fares was approved by council 2 years ago, so be prepared to pay out a few more coins for a ride. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The Canadian Coast Guard says a capsized sailboat in Yellowknife Bay is not a risk to a nearby bird hotspot. People have been watching this sailboat for a while now, and that was even before it tipped over. In an email, a spokesperson for the Coast Guard says that the boat likely went over during high winds, and they don't believe any pollutants have been released. This comes as there are concerns from a Yellowknife resident that the tipped boat could affect birds in the area. Rotary Park is a popular birding area in the city, but a protected area specialist with the Canadian Wildlife Service says as long as there's no pollutants.
While it might have posed a bit of a novel item in their environment that they might check out or kind of avoid for a while, it doesn't seem like it's causing much of an issue for the birds at present moment.
The Coast Guard says the owner of the boat is working with them to remove it from the water.
Does public transit really need more police officers? And so this is it.
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
It is now believed that Titan was destroyed.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
All of this, just single detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? How is that even possible? Well, with a little bit of help, I think we can explain it.
About that with Andrew Chang. Watch free on CBC Gem.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
I'm such a fan of this show.
Listen to the podcast, Q with Tom Power.
The story itself is so unbelievable. The industry wasn't set up for me to thrive in.
The presence I feel now is not something that I believed to be possible in the past.
So many people thought I couldn't do it. They doubted me.
I felt like I ripped my whole heart out.
I didn't realize how formative 25 to 30 would be.
I have to kind of repress my own self-doubt.
You're one of my favorite interviewers, so I was pumped.
Get out of here.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is unbelievable.
The heart and soul of any city is best served on a plate. Très bon, merci.
I have some women to tell you about. You don't know them, but you will.
Thank you for choosing Plan B.
Tell me what I need to do to save my family.
Please enter your date of travel.
I can't do this anymore.
If you could go back, change things, would you do it?
Tourist visits in Nunavut are increasing. Tourism was stopped during the COVID-19 pandemic when Nunavut's border with the rest of Canada was closed. TJ Deere has more.
Cruise ships have started to return to Pond Inlet since tourism has resumed. Dylan Mablick is the hamlet's economic development officer. He says the number of ships returning is increasing.
It was around 20 on 2022, and then it was around 30 last year, which is a big increase from the previous year.
Visits to Ayuituk National Park have also increased. The park's manager says 253 people visited last year. Before the pandemic, they would get around 300 visitors. Nunavut's Tourism Industry Association says they have more members since before the pandemic. Noreen Nagib is the executive director of Travel Nunavut. She says they've also seen more tourists who want to experience Inuit culture.
It's reflected in the Canadian government's federal budget contribution to Indigenous tourism this year, and we're really looking forward to helping our members seize the opportunities that are available there.
That contribution is worth $2.5 million, according to the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, or ITAC. Keith Henry is their president and CEO. He says one reason the demand for Indigenous tourism has increased is people becoming more conscious of the world they live in.
And I think people perceive Indigenous culture and values as something that probably we should be following more closely. So I think there's this significant change in that awareness.
Henry says ITAC has provided about $900,000 to Travel Nunavut since 2021. They're also hoping to address the demand for tourism in Nunavut. Henry says they want to help create 47 new businesses and hire 1,000 new Inuit by 2030. TJ Deere, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A BC-based motorcycle club rolled into Yellowknife from Vancouver earlier this week. The group is made up of Sikhs who were in town showing off their rides and their turbans. Check it out.
The catalyst is the turban, right? So that's the unique part of us. We ride safely. We want everything positive. So far we have raised over $500,000 for the community, and also to the Canadian Diabetes is one of them. Canadian Cancer Society is another one, and then the local little projects we always do.
We always want our appearance and attendance at the mainstream, that Sikh Motorcycle Club not only ride the bike, but they just, because the community has given that name frame to Sikh Motorcycle Club, now it's our chance to give the community back.
The guest just shows up and just said something. I just want that he should said what he had said to me.
You know, they are coming all the way from Vancouver to Yellowknife. I mean, it's a long drive, and they are motivated. You can see behind how pumped they are, and they have similar kind of energy. So it is really a proud moment as a community member as well. It's kind of bridging, you know, a connection with the community, the way we see how big is our community now. Big in the sense we are small, now we see how it is growing in numbers as well. So it is really amazing to see people are visiting us, and it's creating a connection.
Biker groups are here with us, NWT. So thank you very much again, and they are here. I just want to let all the members know that they are here with the tags and patches. So please, they will hand over to us. That is really kind, and thank you from the bottom of Sikh Motorcycle Club Heart. Yes. Yeah, definitely it will fit to me. If it can to me.
Air travelers are often asked to allow their carry-on luggage to be moved to the cargo hold. Well, a Toronto area couple recently refused that request, and it turned out to be a costly decision. Sophia Harris explains.
Kalpana and Peru Kumanen packed their carry-on bags with valuable jewelry and medications they didn't want to part with on their flight from Toronto to Vancouver.
One of that is a painkiller for my wife.
But when they were about to board, they say a WestJet agent announced the plane had run out of carry-on space. So the couple had to check their bags. They refused.
I needed the medication on the plane. We did try to tell them there is valuables inside. Why don't you allow at least one baggage? They were not willing to listen.
Instead, WestJet banned the Kumanens from their round-trip flight. So they paid $2,000 to rebook last-minute tickets with Flair Airlines.
I was so mad on that day.
In an email, WestJet said the couple was refused transport due to behavior exhibited while boarding, and that it's common to request that carry-on items are checked when overhead space is limited. The case highlights a growing problem. Due to checked bag fees and fears of lost luggage, more passengers are traveling with carry-on.
The result is slower boarding processes and the fight for the valuable overhead bin space.
One solution some airlines have already adopted, charging for carry-on. Another remedy, enlarging overhead bin space, which United Airlines is doing. But some experts say the best solution is to crack down on oversized carry-on.
Airlines really have to manage and patrol and enforce those regulations, and it's the most brutal solution to the problem, but it works.
It's the right size.
Kumanen says the couple played by the rules as their luggage met WestJet's size limits. In response to a CBC inquiry, WestJet said the couple will be getting a refund for their missed flight. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Brampton, Ontario.
For the first time ever, the top soldier in the Canadian Armed Forces is a woman. General Jenny Carignan has taken command as the new Chief of Defence Staff. Her appointment comes just months after Ottawa announced more money for Arctic defence. Ashley Burke has the story.
It's a new era.
À la fois le drapeau canadien et l'insigne des Forces armées canadiennes.
General Jenny Carignan making history, taking command of the Canadian Armed Forces.
You are the very first woman to ever become Chief of the Defence Staff, the very first in the G7 and in the G20. You are a role model for all Canadians and for the world.
After more than 3 decades in uniform,
our new Chief of the Defence Staff,
she's taking on the top job during a tumultuous time.
Today, I can say that I feel ready, poised, and supported.
Canada's outgoing top soldier delivering a serious warning.
Our military history is one of unpreparedness at the outset of war. 1914, 1939, 1950, 2001 are all stark examples. Let's not let that happen again. Urgency is required.
Urgency at a time when experts say the military is not prepared.
The military is in a state of crisis today.
Only 58% of the forces is ready to respond. Almost half the military's equipment isn't serviceable, and there's a massive shortfall in staff.
The crisis in military personnel, there are close to 6,000 positions to fill.
Carignan said her top priority is fixing recruitment and laid out a major commitment to counter threats from China and Russia.
I say we have about 5 years to get us close enough to be ready to counter those long-range type of threat.
It is momentous. For Canada's first female infantry officer, Carignan taking command broke part of the glass ceiling.
This is going to be a great symbol for young women that their hopes and dreams can happen.
That's not lost on Carignan.
I'm going to get a little bit emotional here. I've done this because I love it.
It's a job, she says, that comes with enormous responsibility.
I get now to lead these fantastic people in very difficult times. It's not going to be easy, folks. I'm telling you, there's nothing that is going to be easy going forward.
And the stakes going forward are high. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
A 10-year-old girl in Arvit is celebrating her first beluga whale harvest, and she made the catch using skills she learned at a summer camp for young hunters. Riley Irwin Konyak is enrolled in the Akyumavik Young Hunters program. That's where she learned how to harpoon sea mammals. The program teaches kids what they need to know about hunting, including how to tie knots for a kamatik and using a harpoon to harvest sea mammals. Riley used what she learned to catch the beluga. Here's Riley's mother, Hilary Manik.
To see her proud and excited, and that just makes me really happy as a mom. I could see in her eyes that it gave her the drive to continue on with her hunting in her young life. So I'm very proud of that.
Lots to be proud of there. Riley was the only girl in the Young Hunters program, and she told her mom she wants to send Makta to her family in Cambridge Bay and share her catch with her community in Arvit. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. We leave you with a glimpse into a very important celebration at Fort Smith's library. Yesterday, Freddie the Turtle turned 35. People who came out got to eat cupcakes, take photos with the birthday boy, and play games like pin the hat on the turtle. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Happy birthday and have a good night.
Was a grade 9.
Mr. Critch, you need glasses. Glasses? No, I just think the chalk is just a little soft.
One of these days we're gonna have to grow up, but today is not that day.
I don't want us to get older either.
Son of a Critch. Watch free on CBC Gem.
People dream of seeing the world, but I'm here to eat it. I genuinely love you. I'm here to show you the 12 dishes that define the city.
Très bon, merci.
We are calling it iPhone.
Why would anybody want a phone without a keyboard?